It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood, and nope, not Dale McKee tonight. We got a special guest. He's been here a couple of times with us, Charlie Britton. Charlie, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Got big shoes to fill tonight.
Yeah, we ain't counting on you filling Dale's shoes. We just glad you're here. Them shoes look like Bozo's clown shoes. Them big old feet Dale's got.
We wish Dale a happy fall break or whatever he's on now. I think he's out in Texas, maybe see him his grandyoungins. Yeah.
He's a good egg. Good egg. We appreciate it.
Good guy.
I tell you what he did do. He did leave us with a sideline view.
All right.
You know, Dale.
What kind of view?
Well, you know, he talked about Luke List. You know, you ought to know something about that.
Yep. Won the Sanderson Farm Classic in a 5-man playoff yesterday, I believe. Made a 40-something foot put on the second hole, I think, and won it for his second tour victory.
I believe that's right. He shot a 66, a 68, a 68, a 70, and under par 270 take home, $1.476 million. Now this is the Sanderson Farms Championship, and that first place played that much. It's a big deal.
Well, actually, it's one of the smaller payouts on the tour.
And you get over $1 million.
$1 million.
Man, we need to
play golf.
Well, you play golf. You're a former club champion, aren't you?
Hadn't made that much money in my lifetime.
Sometimes when I used to play, I felt like I spent that much on golf balls and clubs. Oh, man. Let's see what else he's got. Ole Miss had a big win this past week over somebody they usually have a lot of trouble with, them old Hogs from up there in Arkansas.
Razorbacks always give them trouble, it seemed like. And it, come down to the fourth quarter, I think Ole Miss outscored them 10-0 in the last quarter, so glad to get that victory.
Yeah.
Over the Razorbacks.
I don't much care for the Razorbacks. Just to be honest with you, I know that's a long time rebel rivalry for sure. They never have gotten along, have they?
No. Some of them claim victory, and the other claims victory. Had a little dispute back in the day. The record books are different for both schools on the record. So, used to go to Jackson and watch them play. Used to come to Jackson every year, and it was a lot of fun to see them playing in Jackson. But they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, they gave that up. I got a chance to see them play Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. I believe that was Archie's junior year or senior year. Might have been his senior year.
I think that's correct.
Down at Tulane Stadium. I remember that. That was a long time ago and a lot of fun.
A friend of mine went to see, we went to see Ole Miss and Arkansas back in a 7 overtime game, and I didn't ever think that thing was going to end. Man,
I didn't think it was either. I was watching it on TV. Didn't they have two big long? They had one at Ole Miss when Eli was the quarterback. Didn't they have another one that went a bunch of overtimes in Arkansas when Matt Jones was quarterbacking them up there?
I believe that's right.
They've had some long games. And again, too, I go back to the year that Ole Miss had beaten Alabama. And Arkansas had a 4th and 25 and converted on something and beat them. And if it hadn't been for that, Ole Miss has probably been playing for a national championship.
Had a chance to win the West. And
man.
Razorbacks did it to them again.
Dang Razorbacks, can't stand them.
That 7 overtime game, the cheerleaders even quit cheering. They all sat down. Everybody was ready for it.
That one was at Ole Miss, wasn't it?
It was.
That was the one. There was a picture of a young lady from Waynesboro they showed on their film that night. I believe I can't remember who it was. I believe it was one of Steve and Linda Ferris' daughters was made the national TV up there that night from Ole Miss. I tell you what, Southern Miss having a hard time.
They're struggling.
They really are.
I hate it for Will. He's a man, seems like a super guy, and if you know his dad, man, you gotta like them folks, and maybe get it turned around.
Yeah,
I'm pulling for him.
Yeah, they're Old Dominion rallied in the final quarter and beat them 17-13. And that's a conference win. Southern's 1-5 and 0-3 in the conference now. I just hate that. I just hate that for the Golden Eagles. I've always been a Golden Eagle fan, and I hate that for them. Mississippi State, they won this past weekend. Western Michigan
gave up some points, but they were able to score a few points and outscore them. I think Will Rogers may have got an injury Saturday. I hadn't heard anything since then of how serious it was, and hopefully he's not. Hopefully he'll be back when they I reckon they play this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Let me go back. State, Southern, and Ole Miss are all off this weekend. That's kind of unusual.
Oh, that is unusual.
I believe they all three are off this weekend.
Okay.
So maybe we'll be ready to go next game.
We'll be 3-0 this weekend.
You know.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, listen, time flies when you're having fun. We're already at our 5-minute mark, Charlie. So let's talk a minute about our guest. We got an interview coming up tonight with Scott Kirk from WDAM Sports, and we're going to listen to him, have a visit with him. Dale and I are going to have a visit with him. We recorded it earlier here after this break. But let's take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back with tonight's guest, Scott Kirk, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Scott Kirk. We've already introduced Mr. Scott from Channel 7 in Laurel and Hattiesburg. And so I'm glad to have you on the show today, Scott. And I know you're kind of new to our area somewhat. And so I just want you to tell the folks a little bit about your background, how you got to Hattiesburg.
Yeah, no, for sure. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate the time. But yeah, so I've been at Channel 7 for, I would say, a little bit more than 6 months now. I got here right at the end of February. So I always wanted to be a sportscaster from the time I was young. You know, I really loved talking to people and just being social. And I did a lot of acting and stuff when I was in high school, but I didn't want to be an actor per se. I just love sports. So I kind of realized that the two could come together. So when I was in high school, I was really just looking at a lot of college options. And I didn't really see many things for sports broadcasting. You know, a lot of it was either, journalism, like, for writing or for news. But there was this one school that popped on my radar. It's called Full Sail University. It's in Orlando, Florida, because I grew up in Miami. I should have mentioned that. I grew up in Miami. And it's a private school, and they had a brand new program that was called the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. And it was a full bachelor's degree. And it was a 2-year program, so I was able to get my full college degree in 2 years. So I went up there in 2020, and it was the best thing I ever did in my life. I got lots of great instruction from a lot of people in the sports industry, producers at ESPN, previous sportscasters in the business, one of which was actually Dodger pitcher Oral Hershiser's brother, Gordy Hershiser. So he was one of my instructors too. And it was a great experience. They gave me all the tools I needed to learn what I wanted to do. Finally graduated in November of 2022. And from that point on, around December, I was looking for jobs. And WDAM here in Hattiesburg, we had a lot of great conversations around the December time, worked a lot of things out. And I knew that this was the place I wanted to go to for my first job in the industry, because looking at Hattiesburg, we had a great university for Southern Miss, great junior college programs for sports, and a lot of good high school competition. And we're close to a lot of, good areas in our country. There's a talent that comes out of the Pine Belt, whether it's baseball, football, basketball. I mean, you look around at the national, sports leagues, it's hard to find a guy that sticks out that's not from here. We I feel like we always have that one. So it was a great opportunity for me.
Well, listen, you're working for some good people over there. Tyler will teach you the ropes for sure. Well, what is your take? Southern Miss kind of stubbed their toe the other night. Many folks might not have seen that coming, but I'm going to tell you what, Arkansas State's quarterback was very impressive. What's your thoughts on that ball game Southern Miss had?
Yeah, so watching the game on Saturday, it was all of us there. We didn't get to make the trip, but, first and foremost, we got to talk to Coach Hall today over in the Sun Belt Conference meet availability, and you can tell, season is not lost. There's still a lot more games to play. Conference play just started, and this is a very tough league in my opinion. I think it's definitely overtaken the American Conference for the, toughest group of five, in my opinion. And I just think, honestly, I think it was one of their better games they played all year, because I don't think you can really blame it on the offense. They scored 37 points. I think it's just narrowing the little things, And plus, Arkansas State was at home. They had the crowd behind their side, and it was a brand new quarterback, and I'm sure it was hard, to game plan for something like that because Butch Jones over there, he didn't really announce a starter, so it was just kind of playing things as you see it, and they were in it right down to the wire. It was that one play at the end that kind of stuck them, but I think there was a lot of good that could come out of that because I feel like we saw the offense score when they needed to. They pulled off a comeback to tie the game. So it might be a tone setter to, prove for the Southern Miss guys, hey, you know what, we can compete and score points and be in the game to the very end. And that's all you can ask for because they gave themselves a chance to win the game.
All right, well, listen, let's just don't talk about the present for the moment. Let's look down the road, look at the future and everything like that. What's your favorite NFL team?
Yeah, so believe it or not, even though I grew up in Miami, I am a New York Jets fan. I'm a fan of the New York Jets, and it is rough. I'll tell you guys, it is rough. Now, the reason why I'm a Jets fan is because my father, when he was growing up, when Super Bowl III came around to Miami, it was Joe Namath that came around. He thought he was the coolest guy, and he was a cool guy.
He was cool.
So he kind of passed that down to me and my family. So
that's the way you usually grow up. You're the fan of who your parents are for most of the time. So, being in Miami there, you had access to, I guess, every day when you were growing up. You had NBA basketball there. You got a little Major League Baseball there. What was maybe a favorite basketball team of yours?
Yeah, it was definitely the Miami Heat, growing up because I remember I was about 8-10 years old when LeBron and the Heatles came around. So that was a fun time to be around. I remember those games were the hottest ticket yet. And I actually was fortunate enough to go to one of them, and it was a great time to be a basketball fan of Miami when LeBron was here. But, overall, my whole life, the Heat have been so consistent because of Eric Spoelstra and, a lot of good management there, good ownership. But as far as baseball goes, huge Marlins fan. And for as bad as they've been, they've had a good year this season. If you're keeping up with Major League Baseball, they're in the middle of a wild card race. So that's been a lot of fun. But I think also as well, not to jump the ship, but it's just interesting because as far as high school sports in Miami goes, there's a lot of talent that comes down there. But you're not going to turn on the local news and you're not going to find the highlights. You got to read the paper for that stuff. So that's one thing I do like about working here in this market. I love high school sports. It's a lot of passion. So getting the opportunity to do that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, I think that's you can blame it a little bit on the newspaper industry to a certain extent because there's not that many daily newspapers in Mississippi anymore compared to probably something like you say in Miami. So more and more people depend on television and radio and stuff like that to get their high school information or websites or things like that. Well, what do you like to do when you're not covering a ball game or you're not at work? What are some of your hobbies, kind of stuff that you're trying to do?
Yeah, no, for sure. Having that work-life balance at first is a little bit difficult, because it's I moved here in the first place to work, right?
Yeah.
So I've found myself to really enjoy a lot of time bonding with myself, doing different things. For sure, I actually like getting done now, whether it's just organizing things around my house, just figuring things out the way I like them. But even though I am a sportscaster, it's hard not to take myself away from sports. So I find myself just trying to have that little bit of separation. So I'll just go to the movie theater, just pick out a new movie, see what's new, just to enjoy that time with myself. And I've made a few friends in the area, so when I'm not working, I go out, experience the hub city a little bit, all the little local restaurants and the local bars, a lot of good places, a lot of cool places here. So I just, while I'm away from the station, I try to, just create new experiences and new memories, because moving to Hattiesburg, I wanted to create something that I remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, Miami's culture is probably a little bit different from the food to the many diverse people that live in that a major city like that. But are you missing the beach at all?
Yeah, on certain days I definitely miss the beach for sure. Over the summer I did. It was a nice way to cool off. So I definitely do miss the beach at times. One thing I didn't miss was the South Beach traffic. Every time I would go over to South Beach or Nikki Beach down there, I'd always get into some trouble. Like, not bad trouble, but whether it was just like a lot of traffic or, like I can't control what the guy in front of me is doing at the beach, like, those things. I don't miss that part, but I definitely miss the scenery.
Most definitely. I hear is it 95 that's got pretty bad traffic on in that area down there? Is it?
Yeah, I-95, I-75. It can get pretty rough for sure.
Yeah, we had a football player from Waynesboro that played for the Dolphins for a couple years, about 4 years ago. He's with the Lions now, Benito Jones. And
yeah.
And when he was down there, he said, "Man, I'm not ever going to miss this traffic if I ever leave here." He said, "That's one thing I will not miss." All right, so you've done that, and so where do you see yourself, Scott, in 10 years?
That's a great question. In 10 years, there's a lot of things I want to do. I'm still very young. I just turned 21 about almost 2 months ago. So, in 10 years, I really just hope to be happy and fulfilled in what I'm doing. Honestly, my biggest dream is to be a play-by-play broadcaster. I love doing that. That was my bread and butter when I was in school. But I also love being a sportscaster as well. So I think in 10 years, I want to work in an environment where, every day I'm covering something important, and more importantly, the people that are watching me feel like they're learning something, or I just want them to be entertained, because I watch sportscasts all the time. And even though I work in the industry, I'm entertained by them, and I learn from them, and I just enjoy, and it just kind of gets my mind on a lot of things. So I want to provide that to people as well. And, I just want to just have a nice life, just be happy and not have to worry about much,
Hey, Scott, this is Marshall. I want to ask you, and you may have we could probably get some of this from what you've already said, but let's just say you're talking to some high school seniors that are considering, career choices and stuff. What would you tell them about going into the field you've chosen and how they would go about doing that?
I would definitely tell them foremost, if you are if you're going to go into the business of sports broadcasting, you immediately kind of have to separate yourself a little bit. Once you're on the other side, hold the microphone, as hard as it could be, especially when you're in school, you're still learning, you got to remember you're not an athlete anymore. You got to remember that, you can't really be their teammate. Of course you can build a relationship, you can build a friendship, but it's not like you can go out there and catch passes. So you got to kind of take the fan part away from it, and I would say that it would be a great choice to be a sports broadcaster, but you got to, I would say almost separate yourself from being a player, because you're not a player anymore.
Yeah, that'd probably be pretty hard to do for some folks who've been playing since they could walk. But Dan, what you got?
Well, I was going to ask him too. At times, back in Marshall and I grew up in the time of Howard Cosell, and Howard didn't like these ex-jocks in the booth with him. He resented that, and now it seems like a really good working relationship when you get a professional announcer like a Jim Nance working with somebody like a Troy Aikman that actually played the game and can explain it to you. How would you like to, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I was talking about this with my not too long ago. So if you watch the Amazon Prime Thursday night football games, you'll notice that the panel, it's like 5 players and then just the one woman who's leading it. And sometimes I feel like when you have too many players on the panel, they can take over a little bit. But I also think that when you're watching something, it's all about the relationship. If you watch Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, they have a great relationship. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, because they bond together, and it's almost just like you're listening to 2 friends at a bar, just call the game. And I've called a few games with former players or former coaches back when I was in college, and it was all about the relationship and just the way that they market everything. So I think as long as it doesn't even matter if they're players as well. you could have a reporter, Tom Verducci, calling the game with Bob Costas for MLB Network. As long as the two guys are in sync and they're both telling the story, that's what matters most. Because at the end of the day, the game, you're watching the story unfold, whether it's 4 quarters or 9 innings, or
Well, who is okay? Let's just take the different sports. Who is some of your favorite announcers in football?
Yeah, no, football. I really have loved listening to Kevin Burkhardt, and now that he's the #1 guy on Fox, it's been really cool to see. Fox really handed the keys to him and Greg Olson. I think he's a great announcer. Another up-and-coming one, in my opinion, is Joe Davis. He's also the play-by-play guy of the LA Dodgers. Take over for Scully. It's no easy feat. He's done that really well, and he's called a lot of good football games. He's good, young energy. And, of course, I do love Joe Buck. I do. A lot of people give him a lot of rap, but I think he does a good job. He has a hard job, and you can't go wrong with Jim Nantz or any of those guys as well.
All right.
Michael.
Yeah. What about? I was going to ask you about the possibility of a basketball. Is there a favorite guy that you like doing the basketball games if you were watching one? Say an NBA game.
Yeah.
Say an NBA game.
For sure. Kevin Harlan, when you watch him on TNT, he is just the best. His voice, his energy, I think he's the best basketball guy. And
what about baseball?
Baseball, I'm a little bit biased for baseball. I watch a lot of Marlins games, so the commentator for them is Paul Severino. I remember watching him when I was like 8, 9 years old, when he was just a sportscaster on TV for MLB Network. I saw him kind of grow and take those steps from calling the minor league games and then getting the job with the Marlins. So I think he does a great job, and I really think you can't go wrong as well with Bob Costas, who's still doing the games on MLB Network. I really think that, like I said, Joe Davis does a great job. Each team has their own guy, a lot of distinct voices. So it's hard to remember all the names, but I hear a voice, I can tell you, what team he probably works for.
Who it is, yes. What's the hardest sport to call?
Oh, for me, I would say that the hardest sport to call, or I guess that I've done, is probably, one time I had to do lacrosse. And I don't know.
We didn't even think about that
one. We were just thinking about the big 3 now.
I'm just saying because I've had to do it before.
Oh, man.
It's not easy, but I think if it's big 3 for me, it'd be basketball because, you're like right courtside. So it's like everything's in your face, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So this can do football and baseball, you're kind of in a box. So you're almost in your own world, but when you're in the basketball court, you're right next to the action. At times, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So,
listen, Scott, I told you I was a timekeeper here, and we are out of time. And I tell you what, you've been a real blessing today. We've enjoyed your time and listening to you talk about sports, and we just thank you. We welcome you to our area. We're glad you're here. And if there's anything, Dale, or I can do for you over this way, don't you hesitate to call us.
Oh, for sure. Thank you guys so much. I hope to be back soon. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we're going to ask you to hang on just a second. We're going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors, and Dale and I will be back with tonight's final segment right after this message.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate Scott being with us tonight and enjoyed our time with him. Charlie, it's a big old sports world out there. There's always something happening. Some of it good, some of it bad.
That's right.
I got an article here that I read, came across today. Harassment of sports officials could become its own offense in Pennsylvania. In other words, what they're talking about doing in the state of Pennsylvania is making it a crime to harass sports officials, and obviously this is a problem. And that does that surprise you in today's society in which we live?
Not at all.
Of course, sports officiating has always been it's placed those guys in a tough spot. But we're a little more free with the expression of our hate, it seems like, today in our culture than ever before. And I mean, a lot of these guys, we're talking to them up there about nearly half of all the officials reported feeling unsafe due to actions of parents, coaches, or players. More than 68% of the officials think sportsmanship is declining. Over 67% have kicked out a spectator due to bad behavior. More than 55% have had to break up a fight during a game, and 60% of officials who quit the profession say it's because of the verbal abuse from parents and fans. What do you think about that, Charlie?
Well, you've got so much out there today, and you can see. Just take for instance, I watch college ball, and if you have a play that has a penalty on it, how many times review it? And folks, they see it they show it on the big screens in the college football stadiums, and people get carried away sometimes with this stuff, and I mean, we saw it last week at Oxford, where they didn't like something, they started throwing bottles and stuff on the thing, and our day, we would have never seen anything like that. So it's just a society I think we live in today. It's not good.
Talking about a brouhaha, we ain't on society here, but it's different.
It's different.
It's different. It really is. And I see, and with there's so many ways to express oneself today with social media.
That's
you
right.
see a team having a bad, people start talking about running coaches off, wanting to fire them, getting upset because at every level. These are high school officials we talk about in Pennsylvania, and I guess high school officiating would be probably, in terms of trouble, you'd probably have more trouble at the high school level than any other level.
Probably easier to get to them.
Exactly.
I mean, in college program, I'm sure you got so much security they don't have to worry about it. But high school, you could probably pretty much get to one if you really wanted to.
Oh man, but it's easy to get upset. I get upset watching these sports, but I'm not gonna, blow anybody's house up or anything.
Man,
oh man,
not that important.
It's all when it gets right down to it, particularly on the high school level. It's about kids anyway. But anyway, I digress. I'm looking at the AP Top 25, after this past week. And Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Oklahoma. Charlie, I tell you what, I think we're seeing you can already see in this poll, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, and Oklahoma, Penn State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Southern California, Alabama. Georgia's got the Southeastern Conference got like one in the top 10. That's kind of rare, isn't it?
It is, and we talked about it in the office, me and you and the rest of the guys, and it's just with the transfer rule now, it looks like everything is way more equal than it used to be because of this, and I think from top to bottom, it's going to get closer.
These 4 and 5 stars that these big schools line up and bury on their rosters and they get lost, they can't hide them there anymore.
That's right. They want to go play somewhere.
They're going to go play, and that's good for the parity of the game.
I think so.
I really do.
I like to see somebody different every now and then win it.
Well, you I don't know if you're going to see it this year or not. Georgia looks pretty doggone good. They got Vandy, Florida, Missouri, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech left. A lot of people think Michigan's going to wind up, and I think CBS even put Michigan at number 1 this week.
I think that's right.
Really, their 2 games remain. They still got to beat Ohio State and Penn State, and Ohio State's currently ranked 3, and Penn State's currently ranked 6. So Michigan's path, if they get there, they're going to earn it. They're going to earn it.
They still have to play Penn State and
Ohio State.
So we'll see.
And Ohio State's currently sitting at 3rd. They got to play Penn State and Michigan. Florida State with Duke and Miami left are their big matchups. They got a good chance of making it. I'm going to tell you, I watched Oklahoma and Texas play this weekend. Man, that was a heck of a football game. That's 2 good football teams. And if you remember, Texas has already beaten Alabama. And Oklahoma beat Texas. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and I believe with every ounce of my being that Oklahoma is going to wind up in the 4. They've got Central Florida, Kansas, Oklahoma State, who's down this year, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU left. No way they're losing. They're going to go into that Final 4 undefeated.
One thing I heard, and I think this is true, Texas and Oklahoma could possibly play again for the conference championship in the.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, if I think there's one division, they don't have a separate division.
They don't.
It'll be first the number 1 ranked team and the number 2 ranked team in that conference, and I think they'll have to play again if both of them end up 1 and 2. So
That's a very good chance.
Yeah, real good chance.
It really is. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I missed that. Well, you don't give them something after all, Charlie.
I think I heard that. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think I heard that.
Well, folks, you heard it. Charlie Britton said it. It's
boy.
fact right here on the Brouhaha, so y'all can hold him accountable for that.
A few upsets this weekend.
Well, talk to us. Tell us. What do we got?
Notre Dame lost.
Oh, I hate that.
Man, of course, everybody saw the debacle in Miami and Georgia Tech. And
Tell them what happened. You know, they all they had to do was take a knee.
Take a knee.
But he couldn't do it. He snapped the ball and ran. They fumbled it and got beat. They had to score a touchdown to beat them, and they did, didn't they?
And yes, and the play was actually debatable if he really fumbled or not, but they say he did. And, man, what a way to lose.
Castro, man, I know he's taking some heat over that. Anything else like that stick out at you this weekend?
Let's see. Do we have any more upsets? That's the two that come to my mind. Yeah. I couldn't believe Louisville. Of course, I'm sure they got a pretty good team, but Notre Dame, we all know what Notre Dame is.
Yeah.
But that Georgia Tech game really stood out to me. I couldn't believe Georgia Tech got the opportunity and they took advantage. I scored the last play of the game, I reckon it was.
Yeah. I'm sitting here looking. This is something I find interesting in the poll. Southern California keeps winning, and they keep dropping.
That's kind of crazy.
That's odd.
I think they were down like 17-0 Saturday.
I think they were.
They came back to win.
Came back,
Has anything to do with it? Maybe the competition they're playing. I don't know.
Just win, man. Just win. They still got a chance to make. Of course, they got the place. They got Washington State, Oregon State. So they got Oregon yet. They got a tough road to hoe. But anyway, we got a lot more stuff to talk about here, Charlie. But we ain't got no time.
Why be? We out of time.
We out of time. I sure do appreciate you stepping up and. Next man up. Dale's down, next man up. And you it, Charlie. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you for asking me. I hope I didn't embarrass you.
No, you probably embarrassed yourself, but you didn't embarrass me. No, Charlie, you do. You. I tell you, I've known Charlie all my life, and Charlie, you can listen to him here 2 or 3 times he's been on the show. He knows sports. You know him a lot more about him than I do, and we appreciate you being here, Charlie. I want to remind everybody that they can follow us on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha, and you can see all of our prior shows cataloged on our YouTube channel, the Brouhaha, and watch them on demand when you get ready. But for now, we're out of time, and it's time. You know what time it is, Charlie?
Got to do something with Dale, don't it?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
We'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.